Good morning, everyone. It's 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm gonna be reading this book by Brenny. It's called I Thought It Was Just Me. Unfortunately, it's gonna be a lot of interruption, but when you watch this broadcast like on the replay, you can skip through these. While we cannot overcome shame completely, we can form a resistance against it. We've all done something embarrassing. We've all done something embarrassing in the past. And when we're asked about it, we shy away from talking about it because replaying the event, even in our minds, makes us wish the earth could open up and swallow us. This feeling of shame is experienced by every human. Many times, people believe that shame is reserved for the unfortunate few who have survived terrible traumas. But this is not true. Shame is something everyone experiences. It's an absolutely universal emotion. And while it feels like shame hides in our darkest corners, it actually tends to lurk in familiar places, including appearances, appearance and body image, motherhood, family, parenting, work, addiction, mental and physical health, sex, aging, and religion. Shame is so powerful that we can feel shame by just talking about shame. The impact of shame on human lives cannot be overemphasized. The less we understand it and how it affects our feelings, thoughts, and behaviors, the more power it exerts over our lives. We can't become completely resistant to shame. However, we can develop the resilience we need to recognize it, move through it constructively, and grow from our experiences. I Thought It Was Just Me offers information, insight, and specific strategies for understanding shame and building resilience against it. This read is one every woman should ingest, as it's practically, as its practicality is just the right pill to build courage. If you can find the courage to talk about shame and the compassion to listen, you can change the way you live, love, parent, work, and build relationships. The key to dealing with shame is defining and understanding it. Shame is an emotion we all have felt at some point in time, but when we try to describe it or make it accessible for other people to understand, we struggle to find the words. Even when we find the words, people rarely want to listen. Experiencing shame is painful. The key to dealing with shame is having a good understanding of what it is. The first step to understanding shame is developing a shared vocabulary to communicate our experiences. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing you are flawed and therefore undeserving of acceptance and belonging. The following examples of a few women's real life experiences breathe life into our understanding of shame. Shame is my mom still being hateful about my weight. Every time I go to visit with my husband and kids, the first thing she says is, "My God, you're still fat." And the last thing she says when I walk out the door is, "Hopefully you can lose some weight." She screwed me up so bad already, you think she'd be over it by now, but no, she just keeps going. I think all of the body stuff is shaming. It's like you never get to see normal bodies or you never get to read about what normal bodies do. I think you're always thinking, do other people's breasts look like this? Do other people get hair here and no hair there? Do other people smell like this? Does this look like this? Do you get pimples there? I think everything about your body that you don't see on the perfect people on TV or in the magazines, you wonder if you're the only person and you gross yourself out. And that's what shame is. Shame is when you're grossed out by yourself. It is when your very own body makes you sick. Shame is a real life issue in our society. It's exceptionally hard as the exact time that our society embraces shame, shaming, blaming, judgment, and rejection. It also holds acceptance and belonging as immensely important. In other words, it's never been more impossible to fit in, yet fitting in has never been more important. Shame mostly operates through feelings of fear, blame, and disconnection. When we experience shame, we are steeped in fear of being ridiculed, diminished, or seen as flawed. We are afraid that we have exposed or revealed a part of us that jeopardizes our connection and worthiness of acceptance. Shame is all about fear. We are emotionally, biologically, spiritually, cognitively, and socially wired for connection. Shame is about the fear of disconnection. We harbor this fear because we feel like we are somehow trapped in our shame. This fear of being trapped relates to how the shame web is baited with an impossible ratio of expectations and options. First, we have an excessive number of expectations put upon us, many of which are not attainable or realistic. Secondly, we have a very limited number of options regarding how we can meet those expectations. To bring the image of the shame web into focus, let us use an example that most of us find relevant. Body image. Even with all our awareness about media manipulation and eating disorders, this issue does not seem to be getting better, unfortunately. While dealing with shame and feelings of disconnection can be a normal part of developing relationships, disconnection can become unbearable when it turns into feelings of isolation. Where shame and fear live, blame is never far behind. Sometimes, people turn inward and blame themselves, and other times they strike out and blame others. When they blame themselves, they often find themselves in a cycle of self-loathing and hate. That causes them to emotionally implode quietly. But when they try to escape the pain of shame and fear by blaming others, they often explode. They lash out at their children, employee, partner, or even the customer service person standing in front of them. Either way, imploding or exploding, they are mostly unaware of what they're doing and why they are doing it. People use blame to deal with their feelings of powerlessness. Empathy is the best way to help build resilience against shame. I repeat, empathy is the best way to help build resilience against shame. Developing resilience against shame means developing an ability to recognize shame when we experience it and move through it in a constructive way that allows us to maintain our authenticity and grow from our experiences. Resilience is not an all or nothing proposition. There are degrees to it. At the center of shame, resilience is empathy. Empathy is the ability to tap into your experiences in order to connect with an experience someone is relating to us. Empathy goes beyond just knowing the accurate thing to say to someone who is experiencing shame. Our words are only as effective as our ability to be genuinely present and engage with someone as they tell their story. Real empathy goes beyond words. It takes real work. Empathy is an important component in building meaningful, trusted relationships, which is something we all need. And given its power to overcome shame and its key role in building many different types of connections, it would be wise for us all to learn and practice it. To understand the complexity of empathy, the following are its attributes. Ability to see the world as others see it, being non-judgmental, understanding another person's feelings, communicating one's understanding of that person's feelings. Empathy is essential, but the expression of empathy is contingent on courage and compassion. Courage gives us a voice Courage, courage is what it takes to tell our story, without which there is no opportunity for empathy. Compassion is the inclination to be open to the process of empathy. Can we lean into the discomfort of a fellow woman's pain? Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded, but between equals. Compassion becomes real when we acknowledge our shared humanity. Empathy is often mistaken for sympathy. Empathy is about connection, while sympathy is about separation. Most of the time, when we give sympathy, we do not reach across to understand the world as others see it. We look at others from our world and feel sorry for them. Inherent in sympathy is, I don't understand your word, but from this view, things look pretty bad. When people's need for empathy is met with sympathy, it can send them deeper into shame, thus feeling even more lonely and separated. In a bid to build shame resilience, it is necessary to recognize shame and understand our triggers. Recognizing shame is an important tool for regaining our power. When we know how shame feels, we have an important resilience tool. Recognizing your shame allows you to find the space you need to process the experience and gain some clarity before you act out or shut down. To successfully understand your shame triggers, you must accept that recognizing and understanding your vulnerab- vulnerabilities is a source of strength. Sometimes people are afraid Sometimes people are afraid that acknowledging the existence of something makes it worse, but that is not true. Vulnerability is not weakness. When you feel shame about an experience, you often feel some overwhelming combination. When you feel shame about an experience, you often feel some overwhelming combination of confusion, fear, and judgment, and find it difficult to evaluate your choices properly. That's how shame makes you powerless, keeps you in a fog. However, if it happens in an area where you know you are vulnerable, you're much more likely to come out of that confusion, fear, and judgment with an instinct about what you're feeling and actions to be taken to find support. The next step is examining our experiences is to understand our shame triggers better. Recognizing and understanding our triggers is not something that we instinctively know how to do. It's a process. To start the process of recognizing our shame triggers, we need to look at the concept of unwanted identities. Unwanted identities are the characteristics that undermine our vision of our ideal selves. Women struggle the most with feelings of shame in 12 areas: appearance and body image, motherhood, family, parenting, money and work, sex, aging, religion, mental and physical health, being labeled and stereotyped, speaking out, and surviving trauma. What makes us so vulnerable in these areas are the unwanted identities associated with each of them. For example, many women use adjectives like loudmouth and pushy to describe unwanted identities associated with speaking out. Unwanted identity is the unwanted identity is the quintessential solicitor of shame. The quintessential solicitor of shame. Sometimes we perceive others as assigning them to us, but other times we pin them on ourselves. To understand our vulnerabilities, three questions that can help us uncover the sources of our unwanted identities are: what do these perceptions mean to us? Why are they so unwanted? And where did the messages that fuel these identities come from? Understanding the big picture goes a long way in defeating the feeling of shame. The concept of critical awareness is the belief that you can increase power personally by comprehending the link between your personal experiences and larger social systems. When it comes to shame categories, most people have not learned how to see the connection between their private lives and social, political, and economic influences. Shame is like the zoom lens on a camera. When we feel shame, the camera is zoomed in, and all we see is our flawed selves struggling alone. But when we zoom out, it's a completely different picture. There are many other people in the same struggle. Once we start to see the big picture, we are better able to reality check our shame triggers and the social community expectations that fuel shame. To illustrate, let's look at the issue of appearance and body image, an almost universal shame trigger. To understand the big picture, we need to ask the following questions about appearance. What are the social community expectations around appearance? Why do these expectations exist? How do these expectations work? How do these expectations influence our society? Who benefits from these expectations? When we ask and answer these big picture questions, we begin to develop critical awareness and reality check our shame triggers. How realistic are those expectations? Can we be all of those things all the time? Are we describing who we want or who others want us to be? If someone perceives us as having these unwanted identities, what is the worst that could happen? Can we control how others perceive us? Asking these questions and giving ourselves honest answers is a great step towards practicing critical awarenesses. Now, unfortunately, most of these things, I know women go through it. I'm gonna add a little bit on this book because I feel like it. Even as a man, I feel like some men who are skinny or boys who are skinny, and they wanna go to the gym and build a nicer body and grow, and some of them take supplement. They even might go to the extent of taking like something that's gonna hurt their body. Why? Because they wanna look good to the society. Because they believe if they look good from the outside and muscular, people gonna like them more or they're gonna be accepted. When in true, the real question is, are you happy doing this? Are you doing this because you want to stay healthy and you love to work out? Or you doing this so you can look good in front of others? There's a difference. Because let me tell you something. No matter what you do, whether it's internal or external, in the image of your body, changing anything, and you are not happy inside, you don't have this inner peace inside, you are not contained and satisfied with yourself, nothing is gonna change. That's a fact. Nothing is gonna change. So ask yourself these questions. Why do these expectations exist? What are the social community expectations around appearance? Let's go back in the 50s. How was a woman body defined as nice or perfect body? If you want to look at them from our society now, our social community expectation about appearance, I'm sorry to use the word, they're gonna call them fat. They will call Marilyn Monroe fat. Why? Is she fat? Or because she does not meet with the social community expectation about appearance nowadays? What if in 5-10 years they said, you know what, everybody in the magazines, all these models, whatever, you're required to be, for example, a little bigger. Everybody gonna do this because that's what you have to do, something because you are happy with it. And I tell you something, as long you are healthy, you are enjoying your life, you are happy in your life, do not care about others, what they say. When we ask and answer these big picture questions, we begin to develop critical awareness and reality check our shame triggers. How realistic are those expectations? Can we be all of those things at all the time? Are we describing who we want or who others want us to be? If someone perceives us as having these unwanted identities, what is the worst that could happen? Can we control how others perceive us? Oh, he's too big, or she's too big. Oh, he's too thin, or she's too thin. Listen, people are gonna talk no matter what. It does not matter. Some people might like me, some people might not like me, and that's fine. And that's fine. Some people might make fun of the way I look, the way I talk, my beard, my appearance, and some people might love it. But you know what's the most important thing? I was born like this. God made me in this. And I enjoy everything of it. And I'm thankful. And anything that people say, it's not gonna change anything. Asking these questions and giving ourselves honest answers is a great step towards practicing critical awareness. Practicing critical awareness means linking our personal experiences to what we learn from the questions and answers. When we do this, we move towards resilience by learning how to contextualize, seeing the big picture as opposed to individualizing, feeling like the only one. When you criticize yourself, when you think about the shame, about the thing that you did that are embarrassing, it's that lens of the camera zoomed in. All you can see is this. When you get to the big picture, the lens is zoomed out. And then you look, hey, I'm not the only one. Normalize knowing we're not the only ones, as opposed to pathologizing, feeling like something is wrong with us. Demystify or demystify, which means sharing what we know with others rather than reinforcing feeling ashamed. That's a beautiful book. It's not very big, but it's really essential and important. And I urge you guys to share this live and listen to it again over and over and over. Did you know among women over 18 looking at themselves in the mirror, research indicates that at least 80%, and that's a huge number, 80% are unhappy with what they see. Many do not even see the right reflection. That's sad. Let me tell you something. God willing, if the Lord permits, I'll be 43 November 22nd. Throughout all my life, all the women that I knew, met in my life, whether online or in real, like face to face, I find them more beautiful and gorgeous when they are without makeup. And I'm not saying this because I am like, oh, I am against makeup because I am, I don't know, maybe old fashioned. No, I am not against makeup. I'm an artist. It's okay. I know sometimes, it helps, whatever. But those women who put lot of makeup and they take their selfie or they use the filter and they think they look better because now they look closer to the one in magazines and what the social community, our life's telling us now, that's how you're supposed to be looking. Like Kim Kardashian, or you have to make your lips bigger or your breasts bigger or your behind bigger. You are wrong. I'm telling you, you are living in a fantasy, a big lie. Because let me tell you something. When you wake up in the morning, you thank God and you look in the mirror, you wash your face. This is what's the real meaning of beauty. Trust me. And what makes you even more beautiful is what's under your skin. Because that will reflect as well. Because when you don't feel good, think about it. When you are in a bad mood, you don't see nothing beauty in life. You don't appreciate even the smallest thing. But when you're happy, let me give you an example. You go to the salon, you have your nails done, you have your hair, new style, new color. How do you feel when you leave the salon? How do you feel? Like a new person, happy, in a great mood. What if that lady or the person who's doing your hair messed up on your hair and they did a bad job? You will be in a bad mood. You will see yourself ugly. You cannot see or appreciate anything. Shared empathy helps us build a stronger resilience to shame while helping others out of theirs. Our self-worth, and this book is directed to women mostly. So now if whatever I'm reading, the author is talking to women mostly. Because as I said, unfortunately, it's a subject that women suffer from mostly. You gotta see somebody come and telling the dude, hey, listen, you are fat. You're like, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna drink my beer. Men don't really care about this stuff. Some of them, yes, they do. I'm not saying. But mostly it's women. As women, our self-worth as women is often grounded in the ability to make and maintain relationships. While there are certain differences that separate us all, in the end, we are more alike than different. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry for that. At least, when you're watching the replay, that's another reason for you to watch the replay is you can skip through these like boring parts. Embedded in us all is the need to feel valued, accepted, and affirmed. And when we feel worthless, rejected, and unworthy of belonging, we feel shame. Regardless of who we are, all of us fight hidden, silent battles against not being good enough, not having enough, and not belonging enough. However, sharing always helps. Every time women turn their shame experiences into connection, the results are amazing. When we find the courage to share our experiences and have the compassion to hear others tell their stories, we force shame out of hiding and We force shame out of hiding and end the silence. When we don't reach out to others, we allow them to sit alone in their shame, feeding shame the secrecy and silence it craves. Shared empathy benefits us as much as it does the other person. We don't reach out just to save others. When we reach out to help others, we reinforce their connection network and ours, thus increasing our resilience by sharing our story and creating change. I hope I'm not speaking fast. Am I going fast? Amen. But when we don't reach out, we fuel our shame and isolation by separating and insulating. Another benefit of sharing our story is experiencing knowing laughter that results from recognizing the universality of our shared experiences, either negative or positive. Knowing laughter embodies the relief and connection we experience when we share our shame. It is not the use of humor as self-depreciation or deflection, but the acknowledgement of the absurdity of the expectation that form the shame web. It is recognizing the irony of believing that we alone are entangled in that web. Reaching out in either direction isn't a piece of cake, though. Practicing courage is as difficult as practicing compassion. They both require us to learn into our discomfort. But we must be ready to know what we know about courage, compassion, and connection and put it into practice. In the battle against the feeling of shame, speaking up is an important weapon. This is very important. I'm gonna repeat. In the battle against the feeling of shame, speaking up is an important weapon. My man,
I gotta break this 5.
that deserve to be said again. In the battle against the feeling of shame, speaking up is an important weapon. When we can't find the accurate words to explain our painful experiences to others, we often feel alone and scared. While some of us react to the frustration by raging out, some shut down and live silently with the pain or accept someone else's definition of what we're feeling. There is nothing more frustrating and frightening than feeling pain and not being able to describe it or explain it to someone. The survival of shame depends on remaining undetected. Therefore, it seeks silence and secrecy. You can increase your resilience by building connection networks. These networks are sources for the empathy, connection, and power we need to free ourselves from the shame web. But to tap into these sources, you need communication skills. When we speak about shame, we learn to speak about our pain and take a very progressive step into overcoming it. You need to identify and communicate what you are feeling and why you are feeling it. You need to be able to speak shame. This requires us to develop names and terms to describe and discuss the actual process of experiencing shame or increasing shame resilience. Shame is a complex language that requires practice and skill to learn, but it's definitely worth the hard work. Speaking shame allows us to express how we feel and ask for what we need to build shame resilience more effectively. What an amazing book. I was expecting more people to be here, but hopefully they will watch the replay. What's the conclusion? Shame is a universal issue we all experience. Each of us must examine our own triggers and the messages behind them to develop a path to resilience. Some universal patterns run through our experiences. For example, women's shame experiences fall broadly into the 12 shame categories listed in chapter 4. In addition to the shame categories, we also share culture. In our culture today, the fear of disconnection feels very real. We are wired for connection. It's in our biology. Thus, most of us try to work to feel grounded and stay connected constantly. As we start to develop shame resilience, we will find that many of the expectations and messages producing shame are driven by fear, blame, and disconnection. The culture of shame has a great influence on our lives. But despite our culture's emphasis on being perfect in a certain way, we can develop and maintain the authenticity and strength we need to practice courage, compassion, and connection. We need to change the narrative and get out of the tangles of shame. Change doesn't require heroics. Change begins with when we practice ordinary courage. It starts when we are ready to come together and harness the power of shared empathy. As individuals, we need to make empathy possible by opening up and sharing our pain. These are the major keys to living a life rid of the pain shame brings. Try this, and I mean it. Try it. This is your homework for life. Do not always follow the crowd. Know that it is okay to make different choices and still maintain the culture of connection. If I ask you a question and I want your honest answer about it, think a little bit of it before you answer. 5 or 6 people are watching right now, and the people who's watching this replay, If you are watching the replay, I want you to type it in the comment section. And the people who are with me live, I want you to answer me honestly. If you had to pick one thing that you are ashamed of, what would it be? One thing that you not even dare to talk about. Type it. I want to thank you, everybody, for being here, for listening. Stubborn, absolutely unquiet individual. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, if the law permits, in another great book reading. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you want to follow me on TikTok or Instagram, all my information are in my bio here on YouTube. God bless you all and see you.